Hello, everyone who has just joined in. We're officially going to start at 8:30, but can whoever is here let me know if you can almost see me. I apologize. We have I don't know, blackout or something, so I'm using my lamp light. So let me know if you can still see me and if you can hear me. You can write in the chat if you don't want to talk. Just write in the chat that you can hear me and you can see my camera. Perfect. Okay. Is my screen, can you see my screen, guys? Because I'm sharing it. Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Priyanka. Perfect. Yes, thank you, Richard. Hello, Richard. How are you? Hello, Jace. I hope I pronounced it right. Hello, guys. That's good. Oh, hello, Jay. Lovely that you're joining. Yeah, I'm giving you a heart as well. Thank you for that. Okay, since we still have 7 minutes for the session to officially start, let me know. Feel free to unmute yourself or put in the chat if there's any questions you would like me. Hi, Kirti. Hello. Let me know if you have like questions on a casual basis before we officially start the session. Let me know a little bit about yourself, guys. Anybody who has, I'm pretty sure nobody has an exam next week. Otherwise, we need to have a private chat because this is way too basic for anybody who has an exam next week. But are you all having an or thinking about applying for the exam in March 2021? Is that most of you guys at the moment? Yes? Yeah. Beautiful. Perfect. Anybody here at the moment who is like full on beginner, all what they know is just there's an exam and it's called ADC and it's a part 1 and I have no idea what's happening? Is there anybody at this level at the moment here, or most of you guys are kind of like know what this exam is about and just want like once a more official orientation? Know a fair bit. Beautiful. First attempt, Kirti, never done the exam before, part 1. Second. Okay, that's good. So I mean, obviously it's unfortunate, but at least you have kind of idea. And I have a feeling, and I'm trusting that after the end of this session, even though you actually have done this exam before, but the way that we're going to explain it today will actually probably make a little bit more sense, because there's a lot of people who, especially for part one, it's very easy, you know, to read, study, do the exam, and hopefully like you're gonna pass. But people don't really know that part one is so associated long back. Okay, all right, so we'll consider you kind of new then, because there's a lot that has changed from 2014. Let me know, by the way, if you're before 2014 and or after 2014, because that's a difference. I'm going to talk about that as well. So there's a lot of people who separate the part one from the part two, and for a very long time that actually was still okay, but people don't realize that from 2019 actually things have changed, and especially after the new change in the system for part two. Part one and part two are so close to each other. And if you get this part one right, properly, so not just making sure, oh, I just want to pass, I don't care how, I don't care, you just give me every single book and I'm going to memorize it, I just want to pass, then you're really going to struggle in part two. You might pass part one, but you're going to really struggle in part two, and you might end up having this very long journey of, you know, nearly 3 years trying to pass your part two, not passing part two, and then having to do it all over again. And it's such a vicious cycle, and I've seen people stuck in for literally 4, 5, 6 years. And we really want to make sure that you never end up in this. If you are one of those person who was stuck in this vicious cycle, trying part one, part two, part one, part two, I'm really, really sorry that you had to go through all that. But I promise you that I have pretty much dedicated my life in making sure that this never happens, and that we give you all the necessary information that you need so that you know how to attend this exam with the easiest way, the most practical and relevant way, because after passing, obviously you want to be a good dentist, not losing your license immediately, which I'm going to talk about that as well. And then, yeah, and then just like living the dream. So let's do this. Cleared it, but got expired. All right, so you never attempted part two? You've never done it? All right. Let's do it. Let's do this. Yeah, yes, Richard. Hashmin, it's my first attempt. Actually, I still have to submit my initial assessment. Totally beginner. Oh, wow. Well, like really a beginner. But the good thing for the part one is you actually you can start your preparation, because it does take a period of time. And we kind of like know, usually with part one, there are fixed dates. So it's always going to be March and September. So far, they haven't changed it. We have no idea if they will change it later on or not, but so far they've never changed it. It's always been September and March, always, even in my time, exactly the same thing. But my advice, I know that ADC, I think their office is closed at the moment, so you're not going to be able to send your like assessment documents, but have them ready. Yeah, have them ready. Look, this is my advice to you, even though I did my assessment papers, oh gosh, when was that? 2012 or 2011? I can't even remember anymore. But I can tell you this, the process of submitting or not submitting, the process of collecting your documents required actually takes time. It might take up to a month. And because of COVID-19, and obviously because this is a global pandemic, so it's not just related to ADC, it's related to your universities back then, your registration authority where you're registered with back in your country. They might be closed, they might have some restrictions. So if you haven't started at least collecting the documents, my advice to you is start it ASAP. Even though ADC's office is technically closed and they are not receiving any documents, because at the moment the post is unreliable. Hope to see some positive news. We really hope so. We're crossing our fingers, but we'll get it. We're not going to let this get into our way. So going back, you can still submit emails to ADC, because obviously you know that there's an exam for part 1 next week, so they are still working, but they're like working remotely and from home. So if you've got some questions in regards to like submitting the do not say the word submit, like collecting the documents or what kind of certification and that, try to email them. If not, then at least get into the process of collecting, because I can tell you the certificate of good standing that you need from your authority, and like any transcripts of your marks and your certificate itself, especially if it's not translated, it needs to be translated by I think here it's Nati. It's been such a long time, but there is some translation agency that they only, Nati. Okay. Oh, so my information is still good. Okay, my memory is good. So yeah, they're very specific in who translates the documents, and if you do it anywhere else, they won't accept it, and that might take time as well. So that might take like a week or a couple of weeks, especially with the COVID. Collecting my documents might take a month. Yes. So if you have not submitted your if you have not done your initial assessment yet, that does not mean that you can't collect your documents. Collect your documents, get it ready and done, and as soon as ADC says our door is open, you go and submit those documents. Like oh, so Richard is saying that there's a guy, he's an official translator. So anybody who needs a translator, please write down the number. Thank you for that, Richard. Okay, 8:32, so we're ready to start. Let's start. They do quick? Yeah, sometimes they take a month. Perfect. So there you go. Please write down the number just in case. It's always good to have something in handy in case something happens. So are we ready to officially start? Hello to everybody who just joined in. We did not, technically speaking, started the session yet. We were waiting for you. We were just like talking, warming up, let's say. Feel free at any time, because it's a small group today. There's not many of you. 15, that's all right. I usually have more than that, but that's for part 2. So feel free to chat, write down your question. If you would like to speak, by all means speak. Open your camera if you like. I have no issues with that. However, so that not too many people speak all at once, if you can just raise your hand, use the raise hand in the Zoom, and I will call your name and let you unmute yourself and we can talk. You prefer chatting? Absolutely fine. Any question at any time while I'm talking, please write it down. I'll always make sure to go and read the chats while I am speaking. So are we officially ready? Are we ready, guys? I'm gonna wait for chat. You're gonna talk. Are we ready? Yeah, excellent. Yes. Beautiful. So in front of me, we have let's get started. Yes, that's the spirit. In the, oh, sorry. First of all, hello, my name is Linah Joudeh. If you know me, hello. If you don't know me, hello again. That's my name. I am not going to really talk about, who I am and my journey and all of that, because there are so many other videos that you can actually watch about that. But I'm a person who has been through your journey exactly the same. Some of you are still starting out. Some of you have actually, unfortunately, done this before, got their part 1 expired because they couldn't even pass their part 2, or because obviously, like Kirti's situation, she had commitments and she had to do it all over again. And I'm loving the spirit, by the way, of that person who is just determined to keep doing it until they get it done. It is such, for you, because you're starting out, it is such a hectic journey. I'm not gonna lie, I am not gonna sugarcoat it. However, it is the most rewarding journey once it's finished. the feeling you get, the social status that you get in the country after you pass this, the lifestyle that you get after getting this, I'm not gonna lie, it's wonderful. But to reach that stage, if anybody is going to tell you that it's oh, this is easy, just take these couple of papers and you're going to be fine, I am telling you, my friend, that they're fooling you. It is not like study this, memorize this, and you're going to pass this exam. Especially because we're living, like right now, I'm going to talk about the history of ADC so that you understand the system, but I need you to know that especially recently, so let's say from the 2017, even though I said ADC part 1 did do a couple of changes in 2019, from 2017, a lot of things changed within ADC, like the whole structure. For 33 years, they were doing the exam in a specific way. And if you are bored by history, my apologies, but please listen carefully, because that actually really helps embarking on the journey today, whether it's your first time or whether it's your next attempt after a break. Can you give me 1 second? One of my facilitators who's joining me in the group to help you out is calling me. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. It's because she's one of the facilitators. She'll be joining as a speaker, and she can't get in. So I really apologize. That was like quite urgent. So anyway, we're going back to what we were talking about. So dentistry recently, especially for those who are still practicing dentistry back in their countries, and if there's certain countries, they are actually now following through how the first world countries are doing, such as USA, Canada, America, Australia, UK. Dentistry is pretty much evolving nearly every single year. How many things are you hearing that we've never heard before? How many things we've actually were doing in dentistry and now it's not allowed anymore? Now it's cancerous. Now it's research has proven that it actually doesn't work. There's a new technology. Just recently, when the TG changed, for me, the biggest shock was actually about them removing Panadine Forte, using codeine in their medication, and then using oxycodone. And that was actually something not new. Apparently, that's been said since 2016, but because TG did not update it, the hard copy, we were just following the like an old technique. And that's where ADC, because you've got to remember that Australian Dental Council, they are not involved only with overseas dentists, they are actually the people who are responsible for the accreditation of every single dental degree in Australia. Did you know that, guys? Were you aware of that? Can you hear me, by the way, since I came back? Can you hear me? Yeah, so anybody was aware about the ADC, that it's pretty much the one that governs? We can hear you perfect. Anybody here say, I did not know that? Okay. So what I mean by that is every single dental university, aware about that? Beautiful, me too. Okay. Every single dental university in Australia, let's say Charles Stewart, the one in Wagga Wagga, like a regional area in New South Wales, that is open. I believe it's been less than 5 years. James Cook University, that's a new university in Cairns, North Queensland. And why I'm telling you about this, because here's the situation. ADA, and by the way, ADA, it is not a government organization. It is not any official organization whatsoever, other than a not-for-profit organization that helps dentists and dentistry and evolving, but they do not create any laws. They are not responsible for governing any laws. Who does that? It's the dental board. The dental board is governed by APRA. So when we are registered by APRA. Okay, APRA is like the big mother of everybody, and it has 15 boards. Board for pharmacology, board for physiotherapists, board for GP. We have our dental board. Dental board, that's the one responsible for us. That's the one who creates the laws, you know, the national laws, anything that goes wrong. But dental board went and said, hey, I've got enough on my plate. I need someone to look after the actual graduation of the dentist. Like, I need somebody to control the universities or any education for dentists to become dentists. So they went to who? Ta-da! They went to ADC, the Australian Dental Council. So the Australian Dental Council, again, it's a not-for-profit organization. It is not government. It's a non-government organization, NGO, which means it has been given the authority to be responsible for every single dental degree. So every single dental graduate that graduates by an ADC accredited dental degree. So now you're going to say, okay, Lena, what does that have to do with me? Okay, dental board says, excuse me, doctor, who you come from overseas, you are not allowed to be registered immediately because I don't know you, I don't know your degree, I don't know the level of qualifications you have, plus, are you familiar with my laws? And when I say my laws, it has nothing to do with the dentistry per se. You might be the best surgeon in the world, but do you know the legalities? Do you know what kind of regulations from a legal perspective Australia follows? Most probably you're going to say no, right? So that's where the dental board said, I can't accept you to become a registered dentist unless you have one of two things. So one of these two things, what are they? Number one, either you are a graduate of certain countries, such as USA, Canada, UK, there was Hong Kong, there was even some of the time was Malaysia. However, because they had so many dentists and were having a problem with an oversupply of dentists, they wanted to govern that even more. They wanted to strict it even more. So they started accepting less and less and less of the Commonwealth countries graduates. And the Commonwealth, I mean UK, Canada, USA. because they have almost the same, regulations and laws, it's more of a political than an actual scientific thing that they stopped accepting them. And they said, you need to go through the ADC process. They do still accept a very limited number of people from these countries, but the process of it is so hectic that they would just rather do the ADC process. So here we go now to the ADC process. You doing the ADC exam. They want you, they don't want you to be a specialist. They don't want you to know every single thing about every single thing. They want you to show them that you are at the same level of an ADC accredited dental degree graduate, which means a person who just graduated today from an Australian university, that you are exhibiting the same competence and knowledge as that dental graduate. And I guarantee you, it is not much. It is the bare minimum. It is the most practical, most basic knowledge, but it is strict. They really do understand regulations and law. Here is the common mistake that people fall into, especially in part 1. And here is why ADC changed the system, especially for part 1, and then they changed it for part 2. Up to until 2012. So I arrived to the country in 2012. I used to live here as a child, so I was raised here, but I did do my dental degree overseas. So when I came back in 2012, I was like all excited, wanting to do ADC. ADC was closed. They closed their whole program. They didn't accept any candidates, and they said, we want to change the whole system, a system that they were doing for more than 33 years. Are you aware of something called the 1000 MCQ? Let me know in the chat box. Are you aware of 1000 MCQ? Have you ever heard of it? Which I'm sure you heard of it. Yes. Anybody else? Yes. So many times. Exactly. It's so surprising that you just hear stuff, and then you assume, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to study 1000, and you're like, oh my God, all this. You don't realize that there is actually a transition from pre-2012 and post-2012. Let me explain. 2012, they decide that people are, so it used to be MCQ and SAC, short answered question, SAC. The short answered question was, it was a clinical scenario question, but you write what's your description about it. Pregnant lady, 9 months, come to extract a tooth, taking, has diabetes, taking this medication, what would you do? And you write down your answer. Now, what used to happen? People used to have the 1000 MCQ, this famous file, 1000 MCQ, baptism course, right? Nearly anybody, ask anybody about part 1, what are they going to answer you? They're nearly always going to say Boucher's Corson's 1000 MCQ, correct? But then after 2014, you started, if you are like Kirti, you probably know a little bit about this history. You will notice after 2014, people started saying what? 1000 MCQ, Boucher's Corson's, and Odell, obviously TG has always been there, Odell, TG, what else was it? TG, Odell, and like there's another bank of question. I'm not sure what they're calling it. Correct? That's how you're hearing it. Why has this happened? The 1000 MCQ, it's literally a folder, dental decks here, dental decks. So dental decks, even though it's American and technically speaking, like it's more of an aid and help. But I personally studied also dental decks and I can vouch for it. It is really helpful. And we'll talk about that as well. So the 1000 MCQ, it's actually a folder of past papers, past questions for the last 33 years. All MCQs. And then obviously they had the SAC, the short answer questions. Time over time, people were literally memorizing, not studying, not reading, probably don't even know, like some of them as basic as don't even know pulpotomy and still passing. Because literally you memorize those 1000 questions and you're done. You're set for this exam. You're going to pass. Now, it's a problem from ADC's mistake. It's not your mistake. It's a problem from ADC. Why those people who actually studied books and journals used to fail, and those who just studied the 1000 MCQ and the TG passed, or like the vouchers passed. Plus, the part 2 exam before 2014. It was on patients. So you had 6 days and you had to work on patients. And it was very, very, very clinical, very clinical. You were actually literally working on patients. And you had to study all over again anyway. So you might, yes, pass part 1, but you still have to like study all over again because there were Viva exams. And the Viva exams, it was not a patient interview. It was literally a Viva exam, meaning the examiner asks you, like, you know, what's the definition of X-ray? Or tell me this. Okay. So that made sense that people in part 1 passing by memorizing 1000 MCQ, going to part 2, luckily, and still having to study all over again, but now clinical wise. All right. 2012, ADC says, I want to change. I want to change the system. I caught these people. They are memorizing. And literally, the questions never changed. They were always the same. Always the same. Like maybe one question gets added, but they're always the same. So 2012, they said, this is enough. We want to change. They had a lot of complaints and problems and legal issues and a lot of complaints from the patients where it went to APRA, because the overseas dentist, you know, anybody can apply, and they immediately got the limited registration. So they had a limited registration with APRA, which means they were allowed to work on patients. And even though they were working on public patients, you know, in public hospitals, it's different from, you know, our countries. Patients here are entitled and they can still complain about you. They don't care that you're an overseas dentist, that you're still training. You made a mistake. You're going to be sued for it. So they couldn't control the quality. They couldn't control who, because like I said, like anybody can apply. So they decided to cancel that. And they said from 2012 onwards, we're changing the system. 2013 was the very last exam. For me, I couldn't even get in the old part 1 because that time you had to do English. And when I did the English, could not get in time, could not get an exam, and had to wait till 2014. And then in 2014, they say, oh, by the way, you don't need English anymore. So 2 years waiting in the country to get a part 1 exam and don't even get it after a while. And guess what happens? March 2014, hello, me, one of those people, the very first batch ever in the new system that is called MCQ and SBQ, scenario-based questions. So what is scenario-based questions? Now, MCQs, I would say 50% changed and 50% remained the same as the 1000 MCQ. I still studied from the 1000 MCQ. They still did bring questions from the 1000 MCQ, but it used to be like 90%. In our time, And imagine, we literally have no past paper questions, no idea what an SBQ is, no idea what to expect. And I go and even do this like full 4-week course, like literally fly to Melbourne. They don't do it anymore, but fly to Melbourne, do this like lectures, and then they tell us, by the way, we're just giving you like general information. We don't even know what's going to happen in the exam, and please let us know what's going to happen in the exam. So literally we had no reference. It's a blessing and a curse in a way, but it will give you guys hope in actually knowing that this exam is way easier than expected if you approach it the right way. So 1000 MCQ, till now, we can never say it's outdated because they are still bringing questions from it. It's not 90% anymore. It's, I would say 20, 30% maybe max. And the more they are doing these exams, the more they are actually putting in scenario-based questions more than the MCQs. Does anybody here know what's the difference between MCQ and SBQ, even though both are multiple choice questions? Can anybody either unmute yourself or write in the chat? What's the difference? Does anybody have any comment? Unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. Anybody in the chat or unmute? Does anybody know what the difference? If you don't know, say no. If you know, say yes. The difference between MCQ and SBQ. We have to read a case study, then answer questions related to it. So you're talking about SBQ, right, Tija? SBQ, chain of a particular diagnosis. SBQ, they give you the full clinical condition. And there's some, okay, and Tija says yes, that you're referring to the SBQ. Most of your answers are very close, actually. Scenario-based questions are more clinically relevant and expect you to answer as clinician, whereas the MCQs are mostly memory or part of clinical scenarios. Spot on, Nimra. Spot on. You get an award for the answer. Main difference: MCQ is based on general knowledge, while MCQ on SBQ depend on scenario. Thank you, Lou. So a lot of you are getting it mostly right. So well done. So the MCQ is actually changing little by little. They are decreasing in numbers and they are putting more SBQ. And I can tell you from my time, we were actually told that it's going to be 30% SBQ questions and 70% MCQ questions. When we did the exam, we were completely shocked that it was actually 70% SBQ and 30% MCQ. However, for me, it was a blessing because I'm a very clinical scenario-based person. I always think as a clinician, I am not a big studier. I hate memorizing. For some reason, I memorize things that are important, like especially oral medicine. I don't know why, oral medicine, oral pathology, I can remember, but I put pharmacology in front of me and I'll die. Like seriously, I am that person who needs to associate, like if we're talking about amoxicillin, I have to like create a name for it and I say, Amoxi went on a date with Pixie, so I remember, you know, because I'm just terrible in memorization, and I have to make it fun. That's just me. So I was actually really happy that it was more SBQ than MCQ. Now the SBQ, you're gonna find that exactly like how you described it. It's a clinical scenario question, right? It's a scenario. It's a clinical scenario. And by the way, you are expected to answer as a clinician in every single question, even in MCQ, because I'll tell you again, that transition from the old system, how it was all MCQ, and it was like 1000 MCQ, so people are just memorizing. Actually, even now, even the MCQs whatever you're reading, you're going to find reading from journals. Okay, write this down. Reading from journals, scientific journals, and this is how it goes, the priority: Australian Dental Journal, then British Dental Journal, and then American Dental Journal. After that, if there is any topic from another journal, Indian Journal has a lot of good articles, especially when it comes to surgery and pathology and medicine, oral medicine. And you want to dive deeper, then you go into those and dive deeper. It is always better to go instead of the books. When does the books help? The books help when you graduated 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and the last time you've even read about a pulp was 15 years ago, and you're all about clinical. So you have to go back, especially when we're talking about histology, pathology, instrument identification. Like you forgot about Gracie's names, let's say. You forgot about the chemical composition of composite, right? That's where you can go back to the books and read about those chapters very generally. You don't have to memorize everything, just very generally. What is actually clinically relevant? So when we're talking about a pulp, why is it important for me to know the histology? Is it important for me to know about osteoclast? Not really, but it's important for me to know, let's say, about blood vessels in particular, and let's say in anesthesia I have to know the major nerves. Yes, that's really relevant. Even right now as a dentist, you still have to know it. I'm not gonna lie and say I know them all. I forget them all the time. But yes, I'm always like constantly trying to go and memorize them again and again and again, because it's something that is clinically important nearly on a daily basis. So you read articles, you don't memorize, you read articles, and you get exposed, and you read as a clinician. Yes, there are some things that are going to be purely knowledge, and this is where we reach this little fella. Can you see the handbook? Are you able to see this? Guys, are you able to see the handbook? Yes? Okay, beautiful. Let's go and talk about the pyramid, Miller's pyramid. It's a famous pyramid. It doesn't apply, by the way, on dentistry. This is a psychological perspective. In the end, dentistry is the art and science, right? And there's a lot of behavioral things, not just knowledge things. Correct? That's what makes us a clinician, not a dentist. Not just a dentist or a dental student. The mistake that people do in the part one, and again, if it was before 2014, you could have got away with it. If it was after 2014, you were like, because people who memorize still pass, but especially beyond 2017, and I really have to, I forgot which section, but I read it with ADC that in 2019 they did change, because they did this big advertisement and announcement. They were looking for people to join their committee to create bank of questions, and these bank of questions are going to constantly change to decrease the amount of predictability of the exam. And this is what used to happen. Again, every time you're posting the questions, it becomes very predictable, and it becomes very easy for you to collect the questions, put them in a file, and then answer them and circulate them, right? So they caught on that, and the more they did research about it, they actually really invested in this a lot of money and a lot of time, and they brought in a lot of experts. And you can even see from their references, they are referencing from America and Canada, from big like big research companies and big education companies, because number one, we have an oversupply of dentists at the moment. It is an issue, by the way. Even if you remove overseas dentists from the equation, we have a problem with the oversupply of dentists, because there's far too many local universities at the moment with people graduating. And number two, They want to control the number. You want to call it status quo, you want to call it, not fair, call it whatever. It does not mean by any means that, oh, because statistically I'm not going to be able to pass. Absolutely not. That is ridiculous. That is an excuse that you're feeding yourself, that I'm never going to pass. You can 100% still pass, but you need to step up your game. There's no playing around. It's a very high competitive exam, and we're saying, when we say 1,000, sometimes up to 1,000 person every year doing just part one, and then wanting a chance in part two, look at the amount of number of people, and you've got like nearly 300 to 400 people passing, sometimes even more. Sometimes it can go up to 500, which means like 50% of people pass part one, and then you have like a 13% passing rate of part two. So the idea is you being this smart person, wanting to, from the beginning, I want to start my journey correctly. I want to pass the part one in a way where it actually helps me pass part two, and then it actually helps me get a job, because you're going to be spending these couple of years and all these money, and then to be told, oh, sorry, you're not, you don't have local experience, we're not going to hire you. That's going to happen. Okay, so step up your game, understand the system, know what to study. Don't waste your time. You love memorization, that's absolutely fine. There's just some people who love reading, and like, I admire them, honestly, because it takes a lot of energy. We all learn different ways. The idea is you've got to understand you can still pass, and you can still pass the right way, and you can actually be building the knowledge from the beginning, so that when you reach the part two, which now is in the new system, this OSCE thing, especially with the OSCE, you are actually cutting back your study and preparation time by half. So within 1 year, you can actually pass your part one and part two from the first attempt, without that many memorization. And I'm talking about those people who struggle to memorize, and they think that I have to read all these books, and I have to know everything about everything, and I have to be a specialist in everything, and they go and fail. Or the opposite, the people who say, nah, I'm a dentist, I graduated, I know all this, and they do not read, and they actually answer as a clinician in their country. So do you extract the tooth with no rubber dam? Do you do the root canal with no rubber dam? Yeah, of course I do. What harm can be done? And boom, you fail. Okay, so that's the difference. We don't want to go to that extreme. We don't want to go to that extreme. So the Miller's pyramid, the very base, knows, okay, that is the factual knowledge. The factual knowledge, that is actually the theory. The theory is that you know, and that goes from part one. So if we read here, so they are applying the Miller's concepts to the assessment of competence, and you're going to hear this a lot. Are you competent enough? You've got to remember, C, B, and A can still make you pass your part one. All right, when we move on to part two, that's when we reach that stage. Very basic knowledge, very basic technical work. Like you look at it, oh my God, are you sure that you pass? And you can actually still pass if you exhibit the minimum required to be considered competent, which means as a human being who happens to be a dentist, you know enough what to do, so knows. You know enough on how to do something, and that goes into what's called performance-based assessment. That's part two. So knows, that's part one. And recently it has also become part two, because there's the OSCE compartment. In not only you're doing a patient interview and you're being tested on your communication, but you're actually being tested on the knowledge as well. And again, that helps if you've done your part one properly enough. Knows how, so you're doing your technical in the simulated environment, you're doing your local anesthesia on a mannequin in a simulated environment. Shows how, So behavior in a simulated situation. So not only that you know how, see, I'm taking my needle, look at this, look, 45 degrees, because that's what the book tells me. That's you showing that you know how to do it, but showing how, not just knowing how, showing how. So yep, I do it very, very easily and well behaved and very confident, in a very confident manner. And I hit the bone too early. Slowly just go and move the needle very calmly, as any competent dentist does. That's it, you pass. Now, why are we not doing the does, which is the workplace behavior? Anybody knows why actually at the moment it's not applied anymore? Does anybody know? The does, the word workplace behavior, anybody knows why? Or what does it even mean? No? Anybody try? Scratch your heads really hard. Nobody? Because I guess I would say confidently, maybe more than half of you have never even read this clinician-patient etiquettes, and also with the co-workers. Yes, but why isn't any more applied for ADC? Why isn't ADC using the does from the Miller's pyramid? Do you know? It used to use it, but they stopped using it anymore. Do you know? Maybe set of rules to be followed in the workplace. Yes, so that is the definition of the workplace behavior. You as a dentist in the actual environment, you know, with the patients, with the staff, dental nurse, they stopped doing it because they stopped doing the patients. They stopped examining you on patients, so they can't follow the does anymore. They can't follow the workplace behavior anymore. Now they stop on the show how, which is the behavior in the simulated situation. They create for you a simulated environment, and that is related to part 2, where they put you in this venue with mannequins, and they see how you behave in a simulated environment. They try to show you as much as possible, or create as much as possible a simulated environment for yourself, and they see how you behave. You're with me so far? Are we all good so far? Beautiful. Yes, perfect. The assessment of the knowledge layers of competence can be assessed at the knows and or knows how levels. Knowledge is most commonly assessed by written examination. The knowledge itself, they didn't say theory, right? They didn't say theoretical knowledge. They didn't say science. They said knowledge. So you have to understand, and especially us dentists, we get so comfortable reading and studying that we lose reality, us being clinician. You have to understand, and again, there's the opposite, because I can tell you from now, with us, the Middle East, you know, especially the Arabs, we take it, sometimes we take it too extreme in too clinical, right? Like, I know this. Yes, you know this, but you still need to study. You still, why? Not because you don't know, you know, we know that you know, but because you don't know the regulations according to Australia. That's why you have to go back into the scientific journals. That's why even in Australia, as a dentist, after you graduate, after you pass, after you become registered, every 3 years, you still need to do 60 CPD hours of constant studying, constant workshops, and constant courses, because you can never say that you know everything. Versus the other person who thinks as a dental student, give me the books, I'll memorize them, I'll know everything. I can, like, literally, I can tell you page 65 in TG, paragraph 3, sentence 4, section 3.1, it says this. And then you go and do a patient interview with them or like a role play with them. Nothing. They are not able to apply, see, which is applied knowledge, knows how to apply the knowledge in their head in a clinical situation. And that, for part 1, is the scenario-based question. Does that make sense? Am I making sense, or is it just too complicated for you? Or is just gibberish for you? Making sense? Perfect. Beautiful. Beautiful. So here you can see in from ADC that the performance of the competence, they are assessed usually on the shows how or does levels, and that's why part 1 is pretty much the basic. This is your base, right, which is just purely knowledge, and now you understand what's the difference between theory and what's the difference between clinical or practical knowledge or applied knowledge, versus part 2, which is that's the biggest one. That's the juicy one. That's the one that unfortunately most people fail in, and unfortunately, if you don't get it right, you can lose your life over it. Like, you can be stuck for 10 years in it. But I don't want you to be worried about it even for like one bit, because when the time comes, trust me, we got you covered for that. And that is actually the main reason why it made me, for the very first time, say, okay, I need to invest the time actually and get a whole team for the part 1, because I could not ignore anymore how associated part 1 and part 2 together. In my time, it wasn't. Honestly, in my time, it was like part 1, part 2, because part 2 was just technical. It was purely technical task. It was the show how. That's it. There was no applied knowledge, to the point where when I passed my exam, I was so underprepared. Like, I knew how to do the perfect crown and the perfect composite, and I knew how to perfectly communicate with my patient, but I forgot medications. I did not know how to diagnose. I did not how to treatment plan. I knew nothing. And for 6 months after passing, I ate the TG and read it and watched every single course and workshop you can imagine, more than I prepared for part 1 the first time. Because part 1, I honestly did not read that much, did not study that much, studied enough, and still passed. I didn't get A's. I'm not going to lie. I didn't get A's, but I passed from the first attempt. And for someone who was less than a month, not really knowing what's going on, did it. But I paid the price. I paid the price after I passed part 2, because part 1 wasn't really needed for part 2. But after passing, I'm like, oh my God, they didn't prepare me well. Then when they when they changed the part 2 in 2017, because I passed in 2016 part 2, when they introduced in 2018, the new system, the OSCE, and the more I'm teaching, the more I'm realizing, guys, if you pass part 1, how can you not know this? How can you not be prepared for this? Why are you studying all over again? And then I realized how everybody was focusing on the theoretical part of it, which can still make you pass, but it will make your life miserable in part 2. So that's where, from now on, and I hope this is making sense, and I hope it's clicking in your head, that you realize it's a process called part 1 that takes you to part 2. Please stop separating the two anymore, especially after the new system. Am I making sense here? Does anybody disagree with this, or is not really resonating with? Anybody? You can say I agree or disagree. Beautiful. Feel free for who disagrees or has an opinion, please. I always love hearing other people's opinion. Beautiful. So, even though the highest level on Miller's is the does, okay, so here, I'm reading here. Although the does level of performance represents the highest level in Miller's pyramid, assessments at this level would require assessing a practitioner performing clinical duties on live patients. So now it makes sense why, even though it is the best option for me, like not for me, for ADC or for any examiner, to assess somebody's competence, like the 6-day one, which really would have been way more relevant than this one. Unfortunately, in Australia, it is not possible anymore. So they have to stick to the simulated environment. And because they're sticking to the simulated environment, the standards is going to be 10 times more, because it is so standard and it is so feasible, right? That it has to be the best of the best. When it comes to the does and working on patients and live patients, unfortunately, you're not able to standardize, because one candidate who will get a patient with perio that has no calculus, no pockets, and like a quick scale, versus another candidate in the same exam and getting a grade 3 mobility with so much calculus, and they still have the same 15 minutes. So it was hard to standardize as well. Makes sense? So that's why, even though it's the best, but it's not done. It's still done in postgraduate studies, but we're talking about registration exams. And by the way, we're talking about registration exams. We're talking about Canada, UK, America, some European countries. They all follow almost the same thing. I guarantee you they have the same process in regards to simulated environments. Why Australia is a little bit more, I'm not even gonna say a little, it's way more stricter than let's say UK, because UK is a little bit easier. Some might disagree, but I'll get to that in a minute. It's actually easier versus, let's say, America, which if you compare the American, like the National Dental Board for American Canada versus Australia, Australia is actually more strict and more harder. Do you know why? Anybody knows here why? And I agree, ADC is one of the most strictest exams in the history of dentistry. Very possible, definitely can pass, but it is strict. And that's why I need you to take this seriously. Do you know why? Does anybody know why? Why ADC in particular? Like, even if you're at the moment living in your country and you are thinking about Canada, Australia, America, I'm sure that idea came across to you, right? Were you ever like, did you ever hear, oh my God, Australia is hard, Australia is strict? When somebody's comparing Australia with Canada, let's say, they want to restrict the intake of dentists. Actually, no, that's not correct. Australia still lives on immigrants. Okay, we're still desirable, by the way, because that's how we make the money. We make the money over the immigrants, me included. You know, they make money over me. It's not about restricting the dentists. It's because Australia they want high level professionals, high health standards, all correct, but still, since they are accepting all international dentists, so they want them to be at a certain level. But in Canada or America, an international dentist will still have to go. Boom, Nimra, you are on fire, man. You are on fire. That's exactly right. In Australia, as soon as you pass, that is it. Congratulations, you are an unrestricted, fully registered, fully independent clinician. You're registered, you report to no one, you are not supervised by anyone. And it's very intimidating, by the way, the first 6 months after passing. However, exactly like you said, Nimra, the first, as soon as you pass that process, you still need to apply for 2 years into dental university and then graduate from their university. And in UK, you pass it, but you're not allowed to practice. You still need, to my knowledge, because I have a couple of friends who did the ORE and live in UK, you need to do 9 months. They probably have increased it, but you still need to do 9 months unpaid internship and to be supervised. And then you become registered. So now it makes sense that they have to make sure you are actually fully prepared and up to their standards. Plus, Australia is known to be a very strict country when it comes to policies. Like, we are way more stricter than America. Even food regulations, even car like, you know, they suffocate you sometimes. But it is what it is. That's how the country is. You want to come to this country, that's how it is. And that's why it's all regulations, law, regulations, law. Science, it's everywhere in the world, it's the same. A pulp is a pulp, caries is caries, implant is an implant, it will never change. But regulations is different. Canada and America, you still get into the dental university, so you still understand their systems. Whether paid or not, I think it's not paid, but that's how their system. Australia, good luck, you're on your own, right? And that's where it comes, like the coaching and the courses and the programs. And I know it's a double sword, and I know that sometimes you are fooled and burned, and you don't have trust in many people, so you do it on yourself, but then you crash and burn, and then you decide to do it with someone else. They might be good, they might not be good, but unfortunately, because there is no actual support for ADC candidates, you kind of feel alone in that. And that's for me in particular, why I decided to do all what I decided to do, and why I am very personally involved in this, even though I passed 5 years ago, but still very much involved in this, because till this day, if you step foot into ADC in the wrong way, oh my God, it is a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare. And I have seen people ending up, you know, not just wasting 3 to 5 years of their life, but ending up paying like $50,000-$60,000. By the way, I was one of those people who ended up paying $50,000 to $60,000 for both the part 1 and the part 2. I crashed and burned a lot. I learned a lot from my mistakes. I went to many bad people who don't even exist anymore. Like, there's a lot of bad names, you know, to ADC and ADC coaching, but there are also the good people in it, and the good side of ADC. So in the end, high stake exam, it's a registration exam that allows you to become an unrestricted dentist. That's it. Once you pass, that is it. Congratulations, you are fully prepared. So that's why I want you to take this exam seriously as a clinician who wants to pass this properly and wants to be fully prepared after passing, because I have seen many people, and that happened especially in my period of time, those people who passed only doing the technical without that OSCE part, they've lost their registration. They've had conditions on their registration and restrictions, and some of them just packed their bags and went back to their countries. Okay, so I hope that after all this, you guys are understanding more about this ADC. I hope that it's not boring, by the way. You probably thought that we're going to jump straight right into here's paper 1, here's paper 2, but I feel this is extremely important to build the proper foundation, understanding the history and understanding how to approach this exam. When you understand why you are doing what you're doing, not just how to do something, your approach to the exam, like even emotionally and mentally, just completely changes, right? And you start studying because you actually want to study, and you're actually reading because you need to know about this, right? And if you know, congratulations, then you're ready for your ADC part 1. But if you don't know, hey, this is a message for you. Know properly. You're not a dental student. You've already graduated, and you are a clinician. So that's how you're going to study. Okay. So thank you very much, Kitty. Not a problem. My pleasure, Tija. Thank you for that, Nimra. So now let's actually go into the exam itself. Okay. So we've talked about MCQs. We talked about SBQs. Anybody so far would like any clarification before I proceed to the next step? All good? Perfect. So let's start. I'm going to give everybody, oh, thank you so much, Jay. I'm going to give everybody a 5-minute break. Would you like that? A 5-minute break so that we start our next section fresh? Perfect. Which is like, please, please. I bet you had a hectic day. All right, 5 minutes, everyone. 5 minutes, and we'll meet again 9:36 since it's 9:31. All right. See everybody very soon. All right, guys, we are back. We are back. Are you back? Yes, beautiful. Okay, so now going into hello. Now going into the actual part one exam. Okay, so we have for part one, and I'm going to explain this very quickly because this is too basic, and I'm pretty sure you already kind of have an idea, but I'll just go through it quickly. We have 2 days for the exam. We have day one, we have day two. There's always going to be 2 papers per day. Okay. In day one, there's always going to be paper 1 and paper 2. And in day 2, we're always going to have paper 3 and paper 4. Now, every paper will always have 80 questions. So every single paper, there's 80 questions. So 80 by 4, I'm terrible in math, 320, is that correct? 320? Anyway, if I got it wrong, I apologize. I'm not, oh, ha, see, 320, yay. Okay, so total 320 questions that you will be asked over 2 days. You're gonna have 2 hours for every paper, right? So 80 questions, you have 2 hours to do it. You now again, please follow their instructions because they always change, but to my knowledge and to my experience and to others' experience, we weren't given a break. Like, you want to go to the bathroom, you can, but it will be considered part of your 2 hours. So that is up to you to what to do. 2 hours to finish those 80 MCQs. Now, when they say MCQs, we all agree that it includes MCQs and the SBQs, right? The scenario-based questions, correct? For passing, to pass, we need to pass every single paper, right? So I need pass, 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 pass. Now, to pass each paper, I need to get, so there are 5 marks, A, B, C, D, E. A, B, and C are still passes. D and E are fails. E is a very bad fail. D is a fail. C, you pass. You've exhibited the minimum competency when it comes to knowledge. And B, you're great. A, you're excellent. You're like, boom, you know a lot. You know everything. A, B, C, all still passes. Now, what do they say about the last person who graduates, like the least amount of marks, who graduates medical school? What do they call him or her? Does anybody know? What do you call the person like with the least marks who graduated medical school? Do you know? Anybody? Write in the chats. Dentist. So if they graduate from dental school, and if medical, doctor, right? So doctor, you know, whether you got A or you got 2 out of 4, your GPA, whatever your GPA is, you're still a doctor, you're still a dentist, correct? It's exactly the same. A, B, and C in the end will get you to pass this part 1 and make you go into part 2. Now, obviously, the more knowledge you have, the higher your chances in preparing for part 2 as well. The better chances for you to make your life easy after passing. Because remember, if you are actually studying, oh, by the way, hello, Serbi, finally you you joined. Hello. Finally, woohoo!
Hi, hello. Yes, finally, long struggle, but I came here.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hello, everyone.
So say hi, hi to Serbi. She's one of the girls who have been trying from the beginning to enter. She's gonna share her journey and advice as well. See, everybody's saying hi, Serbi.
Hi, guys. Hello, everyone.
So going back into, if you're actually preparing for this exam the proper way, and the proper way is basically what? Me wanting to understand the system in Australia, me wanting to know the knowledge, the practical knowledge required for me to know what I need to know to perform the treatment. And 3, for me, why there is still MCQs, which is still like theory, like purely theory, by the way. There is no it depends on the scenario. No, it's like, boom, do you know it or not? Like hepatitis B antigen, let's say, do you know it or not? That's it. There's no oh, it depends on the situation. Why? Because there are many people who graduated very, very, very long time ago, so all of what they have learned is pretty much gone now. There are many, many people who graduated from universities that are still not, remember, Australia accepts anybody to apply. Like, let's say in Malaysia, for an instant, there are some universities where they actually don't even let you apply for the registration exam, right? Versus other countries where they, like some countries, they don't even recognize the university. Okay, so Australia lets you. So there are some dodgy universities. There are some universities which unfortunately even close. Like, I know people graduated from universities and their universities even closed, like completely closed. So that's where there still needs to be some sort of theory. Yes, it's only 30% now, but there still needs to be some sort of theory for them to actually know, are you actually a dentist? Like, did you actually graduate or not? All right, so if you are in that category, which I believe it's a very, very small percentage, to you, I have to say, my friend, there's got to be a little bit more studies for you, and there's actually going to be a little bit more reading for the books, unfortunately. Like, if you are a person who will ask me, what does a pulpotomy means? I have to tell you, you are way, way, way at the beginning, like less than a beginner's level, and you need to go pretty much study the books in a dental student style, not even a dentist style. And then after that, take you into the next level. All right, I hope that makes sense. So ABC eventually will get you to pass, but you need to pass every single paper. After that, congratulations, you've passed. Now you reach into part 2. You have 3 years to sit for part 2. If you don't sit and pass within the 3 years, unfortunately, you're going to have to do the process all over again. Okay? You're with me, guys, till now. We're not going to get into the practical. That's a whole other world, so don't even worry about it. Now, come on, come on. This is something that not too many people unfortunately know, believe it or not. Even the people who already passed their part 1 and their part 2 actually are not aware of that. And I'm talking about people who recently passed their part 1 and part 2, because this is recent. This is, what's the date on this? I believe 2018 that they published this. So this is even making your life easier. We didn't have that, by the way. We didn't have that in our part 1. This is to make your life so much easy. And this is to show you how they distribute. Now, I can assure you, whoever has decided or will decide to come and join like the actual premium program, because remember, most of you guys are on a free trial at the moment, so you only have access for the paper 3 and you don't have access for the mocks. But if you do join the full program, we have actually created mocks on this, particularly on this. So not only I'm giving you like more than 1,000 of past papers and quizzes and questions, I'm actually making sure as well that I give you a mock that has the amount of distributed questions exactly how it is in the exam, so that you actually test yourself and see if you are being prepared the right way or not, and if you are actually passing the mock or not. Because if you pass it, I even have like I made them create like scoring. So if you score from 50 out of 80 you get a C, I think 60 out of 80 you get a B, and then 70 plus you get an A, so that you actually also know. Now, disclaimer, I am in no way guaranteeing you that this is how exactly it is in the exam, because they do not publish what's their passing mark, right? And they actually do sometimes go like, I'm 100% sure about part 2. In part 1 it's a little bit tricky. They're actually really secretive about it on do they have a curve or not. I don't know if they have a curve meaning how many people score. So if you ever had in your university, like my university had, we had a curve. In one exam, the passing rate to pass might be 50 out of 100. Sometimes it might be 40 out of 100, so it's even less than 50%. So out of 40% you can still pass. And sometimes a passing rate, like I'm talking about a C to pass, it's like 60 or 70 out of 100. I believe that it's the same in the part 1. I've read it a couple of times, but because nearly every year they publish a new edition, I really can't remember which edition that was, but I constantly follow it up. So they do have an unannounced passing mark. They won't tell you how many questions you need to get right to pass, but to be on the safe side and to make sure that no matter what happens in our ADC journey, we're always going to pass no matter what. That's the attitude. That's our attitude. That's why I'm telling you, if at least with me, if I'm your coach, if you tell me one time status quo or statistics, or I'm never going to pass because they don't need dentists anymore, I apologize to you, but I'll give you a slap, a mental one, not an actual slap. But I'm going to like tell you, wake up, okay? Wake up, because that's just excuses. If I can do it and thousands of people do it, why can't you do it, right? Is it going to be easy? No. Anything in life is not easy, right? There is nothing that genuinely is satisfying and fulfilling, and it is something truly great in life. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Is it possible? Of course it is, right? So that's your mentality. That's what I want you to approach this exam. I want no less than 50 out of 80. I think that's pretty reasonable. And I can confidently say that a 50 out of 80 can still be a pass. Now, the more you push yourself, I don't want you to be that person who like, you know, I'm happy with a borderline. A borderline means you're literally stepping over, I can pass or I can fail. So if you're happy to do this exam a couple of times, I'm sorry, push yourself a little bit more. But again, we keep saying it, studying smarter, not harder, and we'll show you how. So this is the distribution. I'm going to say very, very quickly. Paper 1 is all about restorative and endodontics. Paper 2 is all about prosthodontics, both fixed and removable. So dentures and crowns and bridges, plus implant. Paper 3 is all about medicine, surgery, pathology, anesthesia, infection control. It is one of the biggest papers, and that's actually why in the free trial I wanted to give you actually the biggest paper to help you as much. It is one of the juiciest papers. It is the one that requires the most of the actual memorization, even in the clinical scenario, even in the scenario-based questions. And it is one of the most critical papers because it's, you know, it's infection control, it's pharmacology, it's, you know, the law, you know, the regulation. So paper 3 is a big one, and a lot of people actually fail in paper 3 more than others. At least that's how I saw hearing a lot of people. It's usually paper 3, then it comes paper 2 for some reason. Serbi, do you have an opinion about that? Would you agree, or you actually saw something else?
No, I agree with you completely. Like that's exactly how the structure of the exam goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the final thing is the paper 4. Is there any negative marking for the right answers?
No,
No.
no,
What about you, Serbi?
no negative marking at
Yeah,
all.
it's
No.
how many correct answers you're going to get. I'll get this in 1 minute. Give me 1 minute about this. It's good. That is actually a good question. In paper 4, your ortho, the pedo, the perio, the radio, it's a nice, I actually like this paper. That is the paper that I got B in. I don't even know how, but I like this paper. I hate paper 2 only because I don't like removable prosthodontics. I'll still study it, but I'm not a big fan of dentures. And then it goes implantology. Hello, Richard. I'm just confessing about implantology. Not a big fan of it. So these are the topics about the papers. They're very extensive. Can you see, like, not only it's paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, but each paper has like extensive topics. And by the way, this has subtopics. Okay, what do I mean by subtopics? Look at this. I hope you're not getting blind. Look at this. Subtopics. So paper 1 goes into tooth conservation, which is like conservative dentistry or restorative, dental caries, endo, dental pulp, dental material. So it's even broken down. And that's what we did. Like, if you notice you'll change your mind. I hope so. You better. You'll see in the portal how we did them into subtopics as well. It's easier to digest. It's easier to follow. And you don't, like, when you say, you know, I have to read 4 papers, what happens to you? You get immediately demotivated, right? You feel pressured. If I tell you study 1 paper, who said that 1 paper is still easy? It still has a lot of subtopics. So when you break it down, it becomes easier. So if you want, let's say, if we're going to dedicate 1 month per paper, if that's how you like, and I'm just going to follow quickly. Obviously, this is a whole other topic which I cover in our live sessions, our fortnightly live sessions for the premium members, you know, strategy and stuff. But very quickly, I can just go and share. There is something called adult learning model. An adult learning model is when you're learning as an adult, not as a student anymore, especially in school where they've taught us, you know, this before that, you have to build this, this is the block, that's how you step. In university, it's still kind of the same, especially the first three years, let's say, of your dental degree. It has to be a step by step. But then, especially the last 2 years, especially in the postgraduate, but like especially when it comes to registration exams, it's an adult learning model, which means it's not linear. It's not this before that. It's parallel. You can actually be studying this with that, because when you are focusing too much on, I can only study this. And again, some people love the linear model, which means give me a curriculum, I want step by step. That's absolutely fine. But what we can't discount the other people who just they get frustrated very quickly, or they can't study very quickly. We're not going to say you don't have a chance in this exam. Actually, you do. But if you at least cover the minimum per topic and the minimum per paper, you still have a chance in passing this. Does that mean I recommend this is how it is? No, I'm just talking about we still need to get you to pass. Remember, the A and the B and the C can still pass you. The more you study, the better it is. However, the linear way, I believe, sometimes is actually detrimental, because you become a master in paper 1, let's say, and you bring an A, but then you might bring a D in paper 4 because you simply got exhausted at the end, or mentally exhausted, which happens, or you focus too much on one paper where you didn't have time to go back into the second paper. I hope that makes sense. So this is where you take into consideration, and my advice, if you like the linear way, is paper per month, and then make a week for a topic or two and take it lightly. For me, I would still rather do 2 papers together to like mix things around, but that is completely personal preference. And I'm going to let Serbi talk at the end also about her way, because she helps a lot part 1 people, so she has more information to give about that than me. Quickly talking about the distribution, basic science. Let's say in paper 1, look at this, 5 questions out of the 80. 5 questions out of the 80 that talks about basic science, and basic science meaning definition of pulp, definition of pulpotomy, pathology of an abscess, I can't remember now. Caries, definition of caries, the microbiology of caries. That is basic science. It's only 5 questions. Okay, 5 questions for endo and 5 questions for tooth conservation. So hear me out. Half of the paper is for endo, for paper 1, and half of the paper is for caries and restorative. And again, we're not just talking about MCQ, we're talking about SBQ as well. Now you're realizing how much actual theory goes into the exam and how much clinical questions goes into the exam. Moving on, etiology. So etiology is like the reason of something, right? Or again, it's kind of like a definition, but more of like, this is pulp. What's the definition, or why does pulpitis happen, right? Or this is the definition of caries in the tooth conservation. Why does caries happen? So that's etiology. This is examples, please. This is not like this is the only question. Then it goes into, let me just move my Zoom. Then it goes into clinical manifestations. Boom. You with me for now? So 20 questions total out of the 80 goes into the pure theory. Pure theory. No fooling around, no saying, depends on the situation. It's either you know or you don't know, all right? Which is what the base of the Miller's pyramid. Then after that, it's all applied knowledge. It's all clinical knowledge, clinical manifestations, diagnosis, investigations, the treatment, the outcome of the treatment, the social context of the situation. If anybody did part 1 before, a patient comes to you angry after a root canal. Do you replace the filling? Do you blah, blah, blah? That's a social context. And then if eventually it goes into what's the total questions, which is 80. 40 goes to endo, 40 goes to caries, and by now we know that it's subdivided. Tooth conservation, dental caries, dental materials go to conservation and restoration. Endodontics and dental pulp goes into the endodontic section. Are you with me for now, guys? Are you with me? Is it making sense? Or am I talking too fast? Perfect. Look at this. It's fine, beautiful. Look at this, treatment. 20 questions, 20, just on treatment. So that's included, that's part of your SBQ. Look at this, 10 questions on investigations, 10 questions on diagnosis, 10 questions on clinical manifestations. How many questions are we talking clinical? 60 out of the 80, we're talking clinical, 20, we're talking about theory. So congratulations for those people like me who are terrible in memorizing and knowing theory, because sometimes I consider it too boring, but then I read again. You can still pass. Congratulations, you can still pass. For those who like memorization, like theory, and actually think as a clinician as well, God bless your soul. You are so lucky. I'm so jealous, because that is truly, like, you truly deserve the A. You truly deserve it. When you are thinking, when you know the theory and you have this like beautiful mind. If you ever watched Russell Crowe, his movie, Beautiful Mind, you know, they're just like, they know everything, plus the clinician. And that is the difference, by the way, between someone who gets an A and gets a B. I've known a lot of people who are crazy memorized, like crazy, like I am so impressed. So it's like a, you know when you watch the spelling quizzes and the you ask for constitution, so you want to learn and it's like, oh my god, how did they do it? And yet they still get a B or a C. Sometimes they even get a C. They are not able to tap into the logic. They are not able to apply the knowledge they have in their brain into a clinical scenario. And that is a skill, my friend. The more you have practiced as a clinician, the better it is. But do not get discouraged whatsoever if a new graduate, because sometimes it's actually easier for a new graduate to mold their brain because you have not adopted any bad habits or any bad like old dental stuff that they taught us. So it's a balance. Okay, now I'm not going to get into the other questions. This is, if anybody is not familiar about this one, this is not the written examination handbook. This is called the ADC Assessment Process, because it actually talks about both part 1, part 2, what they want, what they're looking for. If you have never read it, please read it. It's actually a very good one of the articles, actually, to understand. The more, remember, the more you understand the why I'm doing this, the why it's needed, as much as how do I study, how do I prepare, you're going to be on the best path ever for your ADC, both part 1 and part 2. Now, in regards to the points, you asked a question, which was a very good question. You said, do you lose points? No, you do not. And let me go quickly and show you how they actually sorry guys, I have to go back into the marking. If anybody has a question, you can write it down until I find it. Okay, I can't find it. But I'm happy to share it later on. All right, I'm happy to share it. I'll either like send you an email. I'll let the admin send you an email about it, and I can highlight it. What I wanted to focus on is, where is it? Do you know, Serbi, where is it? Where the one that talks about how the marking works? Because now I'm confused between these two. Okay, anyway, that's all right. Let's read these are sample questions from ADC. In these questions, one or more answers may be correct, but candidates must select the one best answer. Correct answers are marked in orange. So did you know, and you feel it sometimes, don't you? Like, how do I choose? There's multiple answers that I feel they are correct. Have you ever felt that before when you were studying? If you did, and you should, because otherwise that means you weren't paying attention for like in the questions, you will find that sometimes there are more than one answer that is correct. They want perfect. They want the one best answer. Now, here is the thing where I am not able to verify. So plain out, I am not able to reference that. However, because I know how they mark for part 2 and how they have a point system, And because in the exam there is an ABC, I do believe, and again, this is my personal beliefs, I cannot reference this, but this is me studying ADC for a very long time and constantly reading about them and following up with their articles. I do believe that even in ADC Part 1, that if you choose one answer, you get like a C, so you don't have that many points as if you answered the most appropriate question, which would be considered A. Can't reference it, might not be correct, but I do believe that this is some way how they do it. Does it matter? Absolutely not. Whether you're losing questions or you're gaining questions, it doesn't really matter. But I can confidently say that, especially in Part 1, because in Part 2 you can lose. No, you can't lose points. You need to collect points for you to pass, and there is a curve. There's definitely a curve for Part 2, but for Part 1, you've got 80 questions. How many questions are you going to answer for you to pass? And this is where we said there has to be some sort of curve, or there has to be some sort of points per question, where if somebody answered the most appropriate question, they get higher points, or they get the B or C or A than someone who answered a question, the answer that, yeah, it could be correct, but there was a more accurate question for it. Okay, so need you to understand that when you see a question that has multiple answers that you feel they are all right, or a lot of them are correct, you need to choose the most appropriate answer. And I'll give you an example about that. This is actually a question that I was shown today. She's probably here. If you're here, hello. If you're not, that's all right. So this question was like, how do we answer it? Now, if you read, and this is a scenario-based question, if you read it, you might go and answer one answer. Can everybody actually read the question and in the chat tell me what is your answers, including you, Serbi? Everybody read the question and answer it, both Part 1 and Part 2. Everyone, I want to see it on the chat. Read the question, let me know what the answer is, or what you believe the answer is. For both Abhishek. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And everybody, come on, read the question and answer Part 1 and Part 2. I'll shut off the session if you guys don't answer. Don't worry, you're not going to fail. Just answer. D and B. Who else? Come on, one more. B, 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 D, D, D. Okay, interesting. Interesting. All right. Okay. AA. All right. AD. Bidan. Bidan. If there was, have you ever done the exam before? Bidan or Bidhan? You haven't done the exam before. You haven't, yeah? The no is that you haven't done the exam before. Can you write, no, I have not done the exam before? I haven't done. Well, good job, Bidhan. You are the only person who actually got it right. Good job. It's A, abfraction, and D, attrition. And I'll tell you why. And again, this is where you read, especially when it comes to scenario-based questions, read your scenario very well. What is the most likely diagnosis? So there are a couple of other correct answers, but what is the most likely that falls into that scenario? And 3, this is where I'm going to teach you right now how to actually study for it. So this is how you're going to study. A 60-year-old patient presents to the clinic and they give a history of stress. Keyword, stress. The keyword of stress is more than that they are 60-year-old. 60-year-old, if this was a medical question or oral surgery question, I would have said that's one of an important question, keyword. But in this case, no, because this is a restorative. So one of the keywords is history of stress. History of taking proton pump inhibitors. To me, so far, it means nothing, which she recently took for acid reflux. Okay, acid reflux. All right, that's a keyword. What's happening with you? You have a history of acid reflux. And by the way, if she was taking proton pump inhibitors, but let's say a prevention of something, a clinical trial for something, and it wasn't specifically for acid reflux, I would have treated it in a different way. Now, hint, the word hint, that's pretty much the person who's writing the question, just letting you know how it's happening in the exam. PICS shows upper anteriors with retraction cords in place on the labial side. Now, to me, the fact that there is a retraction cord in place doesn't carry that much importance unless there is some sort of emphasis on the cervical area, which I believe that's why they are putting it with the retraction cord and emphasizing to show you the cervical area. So not only labial side, but also cervical. So again, more keywords that I'm seeing. Tooth brushing was normal. So anybody who has said that abrasion for part 1, D, is correct, they are asking, according to the history provided, what is the likely diagnosis? So again, it might be one of the correct answers, but according to the history that you're given, what is the most likely answer? What is the most correct answer? When somebody's telling you tooth brushing was normal, now, when it says associated abrasion on some labial surface, guys, this was words of a candidate writing the question because it was in the quote. All right, so it doesn't necessarily mean it was abrasion. Bruxism also mentioned in the question. So when I have history of stress, what does stress mean? They're probably grinding their teeth because of stress. They have acid reflux. That means erosion, but the photo is emphasizing on the labial surface. The history is emphasizing on stress and bruxism, right? Plus, it's emphasizing that the brushing is normal. Abrasion happens most likely from hard brushing. Abfraction, even though it is the rarest one, it doesn't happen that often. However, abfraction would make more sense as a likely diagnosis because of a history of stress and bruxism plus normal brushing. If their brushing was not normal, or if it mentions patient uses medium or hard brush, I would have put abrasion because statistically, abrasion is more common than abfraction. See, guys, how the way you're going to study? So primary abfraction, secondary attrition, yes. And why would my second part of the question be, so apart from the above diagnosis, the most likely, what else? See, what else? Again, couple of others. So erosion is one of the answers, but what else most likely? It would be attrition because, again, stress and bruxism with a labially shown tooth that is concentrating on this lesion, it makes more sense. That is most likely it could be also attrition, because bruxism and stress has been mentioned in the history, and bruxism and stress causes attrition. Is it making sense? There was more emphasis, and the fact that they have an acid reflux, that they are already taking medication for it to cause erosion. So again, it's all about that statistically and most correct, the attrition would make more sense and would cause more lesions than purely acid reflux that the patient is taking medication for. Let's say if it was bulimia, that means pretty much vomiting 10-15 times a day. Erosion would have been a more sensible answer. Is this making sense? Am I making sense? So there are multiple answers that are correct. But when you actually read your scenario properly, and when you start seeing the history, which one makes more sense? Which one is more statistics? So how are you going to study for it? You go and study everything about abrasion, about attrition, about erosion, about abfraction, about acid reflux in particular, stress and bruxism. So I've just given you right now 7 or 8 topics from one question, from one. And that one question, or those 8 topics, I can give you 10 scenario-based questions about it. Every time is different. I can change the image and give you a palatal photo, and my answers would have been different. And that is, my friend, the proper way of studying. So it's not just about being familiarized with the questions or memorizing those answers, DB, it's abstract. No, I want to know. Not only that I want to read my scenario properly, not only that I want to think of it as a clinician, but now, whether I got my answer right or wrong, I want to read about every single topic. Even the incorrect answer, I want to read about it, because they might bring another question where the erosion and caries is the right answer. So that is the best approach on studying. And that is also the same thing. Perfect. I'm very happy that you guys are understanding the explanation. I'm going to move it now to Serbi, since we have only 10 minutes left of the session. So in the question, if they didn't mention about brushing and not provided with a picture, then question 1 will be erosion, right? If they didn't talk about brushing, it would have been abrasion that made more sense, not erosion. We're talking about part 1, yeah? Or we're talking about part 2. If it was part 1, abrasion would have made more sense. If they didn't mention about brushing, or they mentioned something about brushing, that they're not brushing properly, or they're having a hard toothbrush, it would then be abrasion, because the image is a labial image. It's not a palatal image. Maybe in part 2, if, let's say, remove bruxism and stress, and there was something about the brushing, so abrasion, and then in part 2, my answer would have been erosion, because they did mention something about acid reflux. I hope that makes sense. So Serbi, thank you so much, Kirti. Your comments are so lovely. Thank you for that. Serbi, moving on to you, your input and your advice.
Hello. Yep. Thanks, Tina. That was really good. Very well explained, actually. I think that everyone must have a confusion with that question. And you just did your magic again with it. So cool. That's really good. Okay, guys. So about part 1, like, Lina has given us a really good idea about how the exam goes, what you have to do. Just, is everyone here giving the exam next year, or is anyone giving it like next week?
Yeah, so I can tell you, Serbi, I think everybody here Oh, okay. So couple have next week. Oh, hi, Gassan. How are you? Good luck. Good luck. We'll pray for you. Most are next year. I think so.
Okay.
I think it's just Gassan, but most are next year.
Okay.
We'll talk as if it's
Yeah.
for next year.
Okay. For Gisan, whoever's next week, you guys just you do whatever you're doing. You know, everything
Exactly.
is just. I
Good
think
luck,
you'll be
Gassan.
good. Yeah, you'll be great, and all the best. For next year, now we have enough time to like just prepare really well. So what I advise right now is with part one, it's like Lena said, it's very clinical, the papers now. Everything that I've seen, literally, it's mostly SBQs. You have 80 questions in one paper, almost 70 are SBQs. So the MCQs that you have, the only MCQs are only 10. Okay. So basically, like more than 90% of the paper is clinical. Yes, theory is very important. You have to read theory, you have to know your basics, but you have to have that logic, which which as Lena said, I mean, I believe she's the best person to understand logic from, because that's where I've learned my logic from. But yes, clinical is very important, like in all the papers. Part two, the paper two, sorry, is the one where most people fail. Like you might get A's in all your other three papers, but paper two is the one which has a maximum failing rate. Okay, so I'm not saying spend extra time on paper two, but you have to know uh, your prosto really well.
Please, guys, listen to Serbi about what she's telling you right now, because she is more involved in part one than me, and she's more recent than me.
Yeah,
So she passed after me. So please listen very, very carefully to her.
yep. So yeah, like I said, paper two is the one where people fail a lot, and I don't know the reason, but yes, of course, prosto is a hard subject. It's not something we study in
I
depth
blame
with.
implant.
Maybe implants, but actually the implant questions are not that hard in the exam. But yeah, but the I think it's the RPD. But anyway, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
something in paper two which is
It's
causing people to
occlusion. Honestly, when it comes to paper
yeah,
two, I believe it's more about the occlusion. Occlusion is very, very tricky.
very tricky.
And
Yeah,
that's where people and occlusion is very clinical as well. It's very
it
clinical.
is. It is,
Yeah.
and it's all clinical. I believe like even I know it's not just part two. Even part one is like all clinical because in fact even in like your part two, most of the questions like in the OSCEs that come in part two are actually like quite similar to the part one scenarios that we get. So they have just a group of questions they use everywhere. Now regarding how to study and how much time to spend on each paper needs equal amount of time. And what I like to do, I don't like to just like study only one paper at a time because it just it just is very monotonous, and you get carried away, and then you lose track of your other how to study with the other papers. So what I normally do is I'll get let's say like it's subdivided, right? So let's take you take caries from paper one and maybe implants. Okay, these are the two topics you want to cover in a week. Okay, we have time, so you can go slowly, and then from those topics try to do all the questions first. If you have all the questions, try to cover all the questions. When you do the questions, you know exactly what you have to study. Like just like Lena took up one question today and she gave you like 8 to 10 topics to study. So pick up the questions because in ADC, literally 80% of the questions are repeated. Yep, they're all repeated, and
And that's
it's very
where
important.
you
But the other thing is they are repeated. Answers are everywhere. But again, like the question Lena discussed today, you will get like answers, like you'll get erosion as the first answer for that in 99% of the places. Okay, so to know the right answer is also very important. So for that, you need the right person to cross check your answer with. Sometimes you think you know the right answer, but you actually don't. Okay, because it looks very like straightforward. Oh, this has to be this, but actually that's where the trick is. They're very smart that way. They'll play around with the very straightforward questions and twist them to make you think they're straightforward, but they're actually not. So you should always you need to know like the right person to cross check your answers with.
mm,
Okay, first do all the questions, find the answers yourself, find the references to all your answers if you can. I don't know if you guys have seen the portal in that, Lena, and
Yes,
most of the
I'm
questions,
opening it right now.
yeah, most of the questions have a reference as well, like where these answers have been derived from. So, you know, you can even go and read that and then get more information about that particular topic, right?
So this is one of the examples. If let's say this is an MCQ question, actually.
Yeah.
This is not a scenario-based question. So it's basically you know it or you don't know it. But let's say you go and let's say I go and put trigeminal neuralgia and I'm checking. I'm sure most of you have already checked. Where am I not getting the answer? Anyway, I should have got like an incorrect or correct answer. But what you need to do is then go and not just I got it right or I got it wrong. Go and read about each topic. Don't memorize everything about it, but go and read about it. So one of the answers was trigeminal neuralgia, Bell's palsy, forgot something else about it. Go and read about that topic, because they can easily go and shift the question where like let's say here, loss of sensation in the lower lip, they can easily shift it and say numbness in the upper right molar side. So your question would be different, or you
And
extracted.
they do that. They do that. They do that a lot. They just shift, play
Mhm,
around with the words and the questions and the
mhm.
options. So it's very important to like not mug up the questions.
Yeah,
Don't think that, you know, if they've given this question, that has to be the right answer. Because even like just with like small words like in, at, or, they play around a lot with just the words. So you have to read the question very, very properly.
yeah. And there's a good
Someone, yeah.
question from Richard. You recommend using the dental decks as a reference for the questions, or is it better the journals? I'll give my answer, then you give your answer,
Yeah,
Surabhi.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, I do still recommend dental decks as an assistance in your study. I like it because it makes the studying fun, to be honest with you. And their references is amazing. Like they have nice explanations, but they are American. So that's where you have to realize that the journals are still needed in some sections when we're talking, like let's say for this loss of sensation lower lip. Honestly speaking, I can get it from dental decks or past test books, you know, those Kathleen's one or whatever. But if let's say a patient came in with pain and she refuses to do emergency pulp extirpation under rubber dam, I would go and say an answer or a question like that. Make sure you get your answer from the Australian Dental Journal, TG, and Australian Dental Journal. You can't find anything in Australian, then go to the British and the American. So dental decks is really going to help you in topics and knowledges and reading, and always studying, you know, different stuff in different styles. But journals is when it's country specific, it's regulation specific, such as these clinical scenarios. Do you take that guy with the fracture, do you do a neck assessment, or do you send him or do you reposition the tooth immediately? That I get my answer not from dental deck, not from Coulson's book, not from master's dentistry. I get it from the Australian Dental Journal. Or if I can't, then I depend on decks, and I felt several times. Yeah, it's an American system, the dental decks, and it's still pure theory knowledge. I think now you're starting to understand how the system is. It helps in just like studying, you know, studying topics. But the journals are still really important, and I would depend on that as equally, if not more. Now, what's your answer, Serbi?
So when I was studying, I
Yeah,
did do the dental decks. I did study
okay,
the
you did
dental
it as
decks.
well. Yeah.
I did them as well, yes, but I know that it's not something that is recommended anymore.
Mm.
Reason being, yes, because it's not Australian, it's American. But there are a few like topics I still like in dental decks, like
Yeah.
ortho and pedo.
And perio
Okay,
as well. Perio is
and
actually
perio as well as actually.
yeah.
So even if you don't do all of dental decks, just to read the theory a little bit to get your basics strong for the questions. You don't have to do the entire dental decks. No, I don't recommend it, and it's not necessary. None of the questions come from there. But ortho, pedo, and perio. Have a read of it, and we have time. You guys have time. You have exam will be in March or September next year.
Yeah.
So just squeeze it in while you're studying the topics you're studying. Go have a read quickly.
It's more of testing your knowledge, isn't
Just
it? Because
yeah,
it's
you're
MCQs.
just getting more information. You're not losing anything. You're just
Yeah.
going to add to your knowledge.
Yeah.
Don't depend on it. Definitely not. I will not depend on dental decks any day. But if it's an additional knowledge, I will. I read it for my exam and I was okay. So I
And
mean,
remember, if it's purely science, dental dex is good. So any question or topic that is purely science, and when I say purely science, meaning definition of caries or definition of pulp, you go to every single country, whether it's Australia or the Atlantic, it's always going to have the same definition. That's where you rely. Anything that has different regulations, let's say prophylactic antibiotic, so clinical scenarios. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Basically, the 10, the 10 MCQs that you get in the exam out of the 80,
Yeah.
dental X might be helpful, okay, but not for the 70 SBQs that you're going to get, right? So for that, again, you just need your logic, your theory, your brain and your smartness there. So read dental decks if you have time. Don't depend on it. That's all. Yeah.
Good.
Other
Gassan is
thing,
asking, the ADC wants only Australian or British sources. He's asking.
there is the in the handbook they've given a list of journals and articles they recommend.
Yep,
So if
an
you
American
wanted,
journal is
yeah,
there as well.
there are a few American and British ones, so there's no harm in reading those. There's some of those are just universal articles. So, you know, in from whatever the list that ADC is given, read all if you can. Like, that's,
I
aiming
can
for an A. But yeah.
um, I can verify this, like as currently a practicing clinician, I can tell you that in Australia we still actually follow America. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever American
Yeah.
association releases something, we still follow it. But when it comes to like common laws in the countries, we prefer to go Australian, then British, only because, by the way, there is no such thing as Australian. Like we are known to not create anything, so we mostly copy things. So we follow British only because we're a Commonwealth. We're being governed by the Queen of Elizabeth of UK. So that's why we say Australian, British, then American. But American and British and Australian is actually American. We actually take their reference and then put it as Australian and American.
Yeah, so I agree with that. You have to. I mean, it's very universal. Australia is not completely Australia. It's a combination of everything. So um, that's what reading like a lot. Okay, is not harmful, but it can be harmful. It's a double-edged sword, I would say. You need to know where to stop because sometimes when you read too much, that also is just you need to control yourself when you're studying with ADC. You need to just have a limit. Like I would say, when you're doing, let's say you're doing caries, just read enough to know the basics. Okay, don't go into like details of I'll read all the articles of caries, I want to read everything about the bacteria, no, even if you just read dental caries from TG, you'll be good. Believe me, that's more than enough. Okay, therapeutic guidelines is like the gold standard for the ADC exam. If you read dental caries and you know every word of TG, you are getting that 10 out of 10 in paper one. Okay, read dental caries from TG, do the questions, do all dental caries questions. If there's any question you think that oh no, I couldn't find the answer from TG, okay, then look for an additional reference. So go like that. Go study basics first from the easiest like text that you have. And if that is not sufficient, then go for a second reference. Does that make sense? Is just don't complicate your studying. That's what I'm trying to say. Do as many questions as possible. MCQs, there's this book called Vouchers, okay, which mostly I've noticed that the 10 MCQs that do come in the exam, out of the 80 are picked from Vouchers as well. So Vouchers is one book that ADC really loves. So if you do want to, if you have that book, or actually in the, most of the questions in 1000 MCQs everywhere in the portal as well is going to be covering that anyway. So you don't need to worry. But
By the way, they love
SBQ,
Bouchers because Bouchers is the president of ADC. Like he's one of the directors. He's still alive. That's why they love Bouchers. They want.
that's why those questions. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
We've
yeah.
got we've got a question. Um, I'll get to your questions, Gassan. We've got Richard asking which TG we should follow.
Look,
A very tricky question.
at the moment, like, they have not updated, there's no update in the ADC website about the new TG.
Yeah.
Okay, till then we are following the old TG.
So I
However,
can add I'll let you finish.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you. I'll add one thing.
yeah,
I with old TG and new TG, there are updated things which guys, just letting you know, it was actually updated a long time ago. It's just that the TG, the edition 3 got printed last year or early this year. I think it was last year, December. So even though ADC is telling you till now, they still said follow the old TG. The things that are different in between is mostly medications, right? It's mostly the medication. So I still suggest, because in the end you are going to do part 2 as well, and you are going to pass your exams as well, and you do need to get familiar with the actual book that the Australian clinicians are following. Is I'll have my old TG, but I will have my new TG as well. And anything that is contradicting, like for now, I can easily go and say there are things that have been added in the new TG. I would read it. There has been some things that have been omitted from the old TG. I will read the old TG just to be familiar with it. And then if old TG says, prescribe codeine 3 milligram as an example, and my new TG say don't prescribe codeine at all, for now, I'll follow my old TG in regards to like the actual medications or actual guidelines, because we don't know yet if ADC has updated their bank of questions. But the problem is now there's a very long period of time of the new TG that has been announced. So ADC had enough time to update their bank of questions, and you have had enough times to go through the TG, because they canceled the March one. So I want to be on the safe side. I want to follow the old TG because I believe there are still old questions that are still there, and knowing ADC, it takes them time to update, but I do want to get familiar with my new TG. I apologize that I'm giving you more to study, but to be honest with you, you have to. You're going to study it for part 2 anyway, and you're going to study it and you need it after passing. So two, hand in hand, being familiar with the new version, focusing on the old one, and then anything that is added, know it. Anything that has been omitted, follow the old TG. I hope that makes sense. What's your opinion, Serbi?
yeah. I agree as well, because with ADC, like, I think the old TG they've said for the current exam, which is next week, because that was supposed to be in March. So obviously they weren't going to update anything till then. They've had sufficient time. I'm sure they're going to update something or the other, and from next year on, it will be the new TG. I believe that as well. Saying that, the new TG is actually really good. It's really well explained. There's so many things that in the old TG just were just not that well explained, and that now, I mean, so many things, especially the lesions and everything, is given so well in the new TG. So just read it to just enjoy the book. Actually, it's pretty good. So I think
I actually
I
enjoyed the new one more than the old one.
yeah, I love the new one because it's actually so many things are described so well, and it just makes your life easier. But I know people do get confused. As far as the ADC is concerned, they haven't updated anything to us as yet, but we're pretty sure by next year, there is going to be some kind of update. So at the moment, hand in hand, like you said, do both of them.
Yeah.
And you have time, so just read it. It's just actually read the new TG rather than the old one, so that it's just got more information. There's nothing.
And by the way, we're talking to you guys who are still going to do it next year. We're not
Next
talking
year,
to you guys.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Next week is only old TG. Don't worry about anything else. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so TG, yeah, just do both at the
And
moment, I guess.
the last thing that I would say, and this is more of a mindset thing than anything else. When you and I'm talking to you specifically, Gassan, especially that your exam is next week, and I know that you have been through a lot with this exam. But when you fixate on little things like you know, like we're talking, like even with new TG and old TG, we're talking about what percentage of questions that are going to be different between the two books. We're talking literally maybe
Exactly.
about a 2% of
Yeah,
all four
it's
papers,
that.
I
Yeah,
believe, not even per paper, I believe in the all four papers. Do not
yeah,
get fixated on one question or two question. Look at the bigger picture. Now, I can see in your comment, there are other comments. I'll get to you, Gaston, with your comments. But you're saying passing rate, that there's a lot of high takers, and that raises the passing rate. We said it at the beginning. It is a high stake exam. We don't want to just pass. We need to make sure that we're properly prepared. But someone like you, you did get confused, especially in your first couple of attempts. You wanted to do it alone, then you did it with someone else, but after it took you a long time, you didn't understand the system. So please go this time to the exam. I know that you are prepared. I know that you have studied hard. All right. We don't know how the results are going to be, but if you attend with that spirit, even right now, a person who has an exam next week, and you come with that spirit that you have lost trust in the system, that you're still going to say, I'm going to be one of those people who are still going to fail. I did the Canadian, I passed. I did the ADC, I failed. Their standards are high, they're strict. You are feeding yourself with toxic things and toxic feelings, and we are who we feel, by the way, and we are who we think. So if you're going to this exam thinking that you're not going to pass because there's too many people and the passing rate is going to be too high, I'm telling you, even if you are ready, you are setting yourself a failure. But if you're going to say, okay, listen, I did this on my own, I didn't pass multiple times, I tried dental decks, I tried a dental board, I failed multiple times, I did now what somebody else suggested, and I still believe that you are in good hands with who you are taking. And I am praying for you to pass, because I know that you have been through a lot. But I need you to go to this exam with the spirit of, I can do it. And please, Gaston, if I can give you any tip, is to please read your question very, very well. Even if you are familiar with it, even if you have done it, you've answered it 1,000 times, please, they will trick you. They can change one word and you think the answer was that because you were so used to answering this question all the time, and it's different. So go with an open mind, open spirit. Whatever happens, happens. You're still going to do it. And if God forbid, it was not your time, we'll discuss that in that time. Now you're going to this exam to pass. Okay, do we have a deal? Do we have a deal, Gassan? You're entering this to pass. Perfect. I'm gonna check on you, okay? Forget whatever happened. This is your first attempt. This is your first attempt, and you're gonna pass. All right, guys. Is there anything that you would like to add, Serbi? We're well across the time. Sorry to
um
us.
no, I think everyone should be good. It's a hard exam, but it's not that hard, guys. It's actually very easy once you get in the flow of it, and I think everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Um I think everyone can do it. So just
So
believe in yourself.
exactly. We hope that we've covered the base. We hope that how much time is needed for preparation for the whole syllabus. Look, honestly, depending, a question like this really depends on your personal circumstances, your personality. For me, it took me a month, like literally, I'm not exaggerating. For me, it took me a month. But again, I am that person who just thinks a certain way and knows how to just like quickly go Like for me, I'm a type of person who, even in university, opens the book 2 hours before the exam or 2 days before the exam, skim read, and then barely pass. That's just me. I just get bored. Some people, they need 5 months. Now, for me to give you like a proper answer, my proper answer to you, because this is a very high stake exam, I don't want you to wobble and double. I would follow the recommendation of ADC. And do you know what the recommendation of ADC is? 5 months. 5 months for part 1, 9 months for part 2. Now, if we're going to prepare you properly for part 1, I guarantee you we're going to cut a lot of months out of your part 2. But I would follow ADC's recommendation and give it 5 months. Okay, so 4 to 5 months. If you're going to study full time, if like you know, you're this lucky single guy, single lady, you don't have kids, you don't have a husband, you don't have a wife, you don't have even a job, 1 month, and you can like study day and night, and you can get it done. So that's the range. You're very welcome, guys. Anybody who wants to leave, feel free to leave. We they really want us to deliver the result. Well, I'm happy to hear that. So all right, guys, we're gonna leave you. It's really late, isn't it? I wish you all the best. I hope to welcome some of you in our family, in our community. If you do, I promise you that truly, I'm going to repeat it all the time, together you can pass. You do need help, you do need coaches, you do need mentors, you do need resources. A course by itself, where that's why I said, like, take the free trial and take all the information. It doesn't mean anything unless you actually prepare it properly. You prepare it over a period of time, and you have that guidance on a constant basis. Yes, it's a very competitive exam. It's a very possible exam. I'm wishing everybody the very best. Good luck to anybody who is here, including Gassan, who has an exam next week. Our heart is with you. We are praying for you. Best of luck. I am waiting for those who are going. You better pass. Whoever's in this group today and have an exam next week, you better pass, because I'm going to see you in part 2. I'll keep chasing you. So if anybody has any questions, any follow-up questions, feel free to contact us through the email. I'll get to all your answers. Best of luck, guys. Best of luck, and good night, everyone. I'm sorry, I'll leave it to you now.
Good luck, guys. All the best. And Tina means what she says. When she gets to you in part 2, it's going to be next level again. So just be ready. She's pretty awesome. So all the best, guys, and just believe in yourself. That's all I would want to say. This exam is not that hard. It's just all in your mind, all in your head. Okay, good night. Good night. Bye-bye. Bye, Lina. See you tomorrow. See you. Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow,
Bye.
sir.
See you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.